What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to another video and to the channel. In this video, I'm basically going to be showing you guys how I fixed a coolant leak that my BMW F30 335i was having on my N55 engine, and basically just show you guys why it's better to always buy genuine BMW maintenance parts. Now, it was actually leaking coolant from two different parts and two different spots on the engine. The first one being right here along the large coolant hose that comes out of the top of the radiator on the right side and then flows into the oil filter housing. As you can see, it was leaking coolant around where the rubber hose is clamped around the plastic pieces that have the C-clamp connection. It was leaking on both sides of the hose, as you guys can see here, and it was kind of just dripping down. Now, this is not a genuine BMW part. Like I said, this is an aftermarket part. And as you guys can see, this is exactly why you shouldn't buy aftermarket parts over genuine BMW parts. Because I just barely installed this part a little over a year ago, and it is already leaking coolant somehow. Now, the second piece that was leaking coolant was the little flange piece that connects into the engine and allows coolant from the engine block to flow out of the engine and down into the thermostat. As you guys can see, it was a lot of coolant. Now, it actually was flowing coolant into two different paths, one down the front of the engine down towards the crankshaft, and then the other path was going down towards the side of the engine and then kind of dripping down the left front side of the engine down onto the water pump and all the hoses down there, as you guys can see here. Now, as a result of all this coolant leaking, the coolant reservoir was well below minimum, and I have no idea how my car didn't alert me that I had low coolant, because it was definitely below minimum. So yeah, both of these parts that are leaking are aftermarket parts, and as I mentioned, after only a year of use, they are already leaking pretty significantly. This is why it's always better to just buy genuine BMW parts, because if you don't and you end up buying an aftermarket OEM part, there's a good chance it's going to fail after only a year or two or cause some other secondary problem, rather than if you just spend the extra money on a genuine BMW part, because they are more expensive, obviously. You won't have to end up replacing the part again anyway after only a year or two. It'll most likely last a lot longer. There's a very clear product quality difference in genuine BMW parts and OEM aftermarket parts for majority of parts. I'm not saying all parts are not as good as genuine BMW parts, but I'm saying when it comes to like maintenance parts like these, it's always better to buy a genuine BMW part, because they are most likely going to fail prematurely. And I've heard this happening to a lot of other people who ended up buying like an aftermarket OEM gasket. That gasket ended up just leaking again after only a year or caused some other problem. So that is why, once again, you should always just buy a genuine BMW part. Just save yourself the trouble. That way you don't have to spend more money on another second part and do the job all over again if you did it yourself or you paid someone else to do that. In the end, it's just better, you'll save if you just buy the genuine BMW part. So as you guys can see in the background here, I am showing the steps I took to replace both of these parts, starting with the coolant hose flange that's connected into the engine block. I went ahead and took out the radiator fan so that I can create a lot more room, and then now I'm gonna go ahead and remove these two oil cooler hoses that are kind of in the way of getting the coolant hose flange out. I probably didn't have to do this, but I just wanted there to be more room to make the job easier. So looking at this coolant hose flange here, there's a little rubber seal that goes on the inside that's supposed to prevent coolant from leaking out, but obviously that's not what it did. And just kind of from touching it and kind of squeezing it, it seemed like the seal just hardened over time and just lost the seal and allowed all that coolant to just come flowing out, as you guys saw. Now, I know I just went on a rant about not buying OEM aftermarket maintenance parts, but I ended up just buying another aftermarket hose flange here that's aluminum, because the genuine BMW hose flange is made out of plastic and it ends up breaking just from heating up and cooling off, being connected into the engine. It ends up just breaking and cracking and causing a leak over time. So I went ahead and bought a different aluminum hose flange so that doesn't happen. And I believe it has a higher quality gasket so that it won't leak coolant like the previous one I just took out. So I am kind of taking a risk here again, but I really do want an aluminum one. I don't want another plastic hose flange in there. So that's why you see for the new hose flange I'm installing, it is a aluminum one, which is not genuine BMW. In my head, this was the most logical, better decision to do here, but feel free to let me know what you guys would have done if you were in this situation. So now I went ahead and started removing the other coolant hose that connects from the radiator to the oil filter housing. Now this hose, I actually did buy a genuine BMW coolant hose replacement for this one. I bought the actual genuine BMW labeled coolant hose. The one I am removing right here is an aftermarket OEM hose. So now with both of the replacement parts installed, I went ahead and reinstalled the oil cooler hoses, and then I went ahead and refilled the coolant reservoir with more coolant, and then I went ahead and bled the cooling system to get out all of the trapped air that I trapped when I took out the coolant hose from the engine block and reinstalled it, in addition to the other large coolant hose that goes from the radiator to the oil filter housing. Once I bled the cooling system a couple times, I then went ahead and reinstalled everything. So those two parts that were leaking coolant will probably be my last time ever buying OEM aftermarket maintenance parts, because this has just happened too many times and I've heard other people have the same experiences. If you look on like product reviews, for example, FCP Euro has reviews on all of their products, and if you look at the genuine BMW products reviews against the aftermarket's OEM products reviews, you can see there is a pretty good difference in product quality. Now I know there's some circumstances with maintenance products for BMWs where the OEM labeled product is the genuine BMW product, like they're identical, it's just labeled as genuine BMW and sold for a way higher price. For example, the water pump that I installed on my E90 was OEM. It was labeled Pureberg, and that was the identical water pump that was labeled genuine BMW on FCP Euro's website, but it was like $100 more. So in that case, it would just be better just to get the OEM part because it's cheaper and it's the same exact identical part as the genuine BMW part. Now I would say only do that if you know for a fact that the OEM aftermarket labeled product is the same exact one that's sold as the genuine BMW product, like they're the same brand. Like for example, the water pump I just mentioned that I put on my E90, it was labeled Pureberg, like that was the brand, and it was also labeled Pureberg on the water pump. So that tells you that it's the same brand, it's just labeled genuine BMW so they can sell it for a higher price. So in that case, you can then just buy the OEM part since it's cheaper and you're getting the same exact part as you would get for the genuine BMW part, but paying more when you don't need to. So yeah guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys now have a better understanding of why it's always a better idea to just buy genuine BMW parts even though they are more expensive. Now all of what I said in this video is just simply based off my experiences and my opinion, but I know all of you guys out there have your own experiences and your own opinions, so feel free to share what you guys think about what I talked about in this video. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe for more content like this if you liked what you saw. Also, feel free to check out my website at inline6auto.com. I have a link in the description if you guys are looking for any sort of modification accessories for your E Series or F Series BMW, as my store is still growing. But otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next video.